Welcome, everyone, to the C-Suite Sales and Marketing Perspectives podcast. I'm Steve McDonald, your host. And today we have a super interesting guest on here, Vitaly, and I'm not going to say your last name correctly, so I'm going to have you say it again, Bochkarev.
Bochkarev.
Okay, thank you. I knew I would butcher that. But you're a B2B CMO in Russia. And one of the things that's interesting about your situation is you don't have all of the media channels that we do in all throughout Europe, United States, Australia, a lot of the rest of the country, a lot of the social channels. And we tend to, as B2B companies, use those channels quite extensively in our go-to-market strategy. And so we're going to talk about what do you do when you don't have those channels, but you have a really robust growth objective and you've got to grow the business. And we're going to talk about creating deep partnerships and how that actually can be like one of the top growth engines that you have as a company if it's done right. But doing it right is what we're going to talk a lot about here today. And so what I'd love to do is turn it over to you, explain maybe a little bit more about your background before we get started.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me today. So I am 34, and originally I am from a small village in northern Russia, near of Siberia region. And today I live in Moscow with my wife and two of our kids. And over the past 12 years, my career has taken me through retail, energy, IT, and the last few years I've been focused on B2B field. Currently, I am the CMO at Звук business, a platform that helps large retail and service companies manage audio and digital screen content across thousands of physical locations. The simplest way to describe it, imagine Spotify, but especially for business with industry-focused playlist, ads management, compliance tools, and centralized content control across all the branches of stores. Also, I completed my MBA in Germany, but one of the highlights in this program was an exchange model and Northwestern Kellogg in Chicago. It's amazing place, both academically and just as setting. There's something special about studying marketing on a campus right next to the Lake Michigan.
Yes,
So,
yes. Well, thank you. And you, by the way, your English is fantastic. I just wanted to compliment you on that. Here's what I'd love to do is let's start talking about, you called it a real world stress test, right? Marketing without ads or social media. And what kind of, when you talk about that real world stress test, like what does this mean to you? Like when you don't have those kind of go-to-market channels, what do you need to lean on more and how do you think about that?
when I returned to Russia in 2023, the situation was quite unusual for me. All the standard marketing instruments, tools simply didn't exist anymore, like no Google, no Meta, no LinkedIn, nothing. Imagine you wake up one morning and like almost every paid channel you normally rely on is just gone. Of course, we have local alternatives like Yandex services, local social or ads on the marketplaces, but they focused more on B2C instruments, not B2B. Also, competition there has intensified dramatic. Prices skyrocket and the conversion ceiling at some point is just very hard to break. In this moment, we realized you can't really scale sustainably through paid traffic anymore. Just putting more budget on it doesn't work at all. So that pushed us to rethink the acquisition as a process and to focus on partnerships as a high trust, like high conversion path to growth. Our clients trust us and clients of our partners trust them, and combining the trust networks created a level of efficiency that traditional performance campaigns simply couldn't match in this environment anymore.
So what it means is you've got to look somewhere else. And you started talking about taking on an ecosystem way of thinking. And where is the ecosystem in terms of where your company operates and other companies operate and your ideal customer profile? What did you mean by ecosystem thinking?
Oh, consistent thinking is all about building trust, I say. But some building trust in B2B, from my perspective, is not a simple thing. Like in B2C, for instance, yeah, it's easier to create an emotional connection. Coca-Cola links itself to happiness, and Nike launched new sneakers, and people love to talk about it. But in B2B, especially for practical services, utility services, it's much harder. For example, we work a lot with restaurants, and I have never met a restaurant owner excited to promote their, let's say, Wi-Fi provider. Yeah. Yes, most practical services are only noticed when they stop to work. So with large clients, also ABM marketing works, like investing and acquiring and keeping one customer pays off. But for small businesses we work with, especially those with smaller monthly revenue per client, yeah, the best way, I think, is through ecosystem partnership. If a group of companies solves multiple needs for the same customer, it becomes more valuable. But only if integration between companies is seamless. And when you do this, the trust grows not just between the brand and client, but also between all the partners. Ecosystem grows because each partner brings its own clients and credibility. And when one trusted partner recommends another, it's like a ripple effect. You reach and impact increase without just spending more budget on ads. The same time, partnership, of course, not don't replace channels, of course, but they multiply the effect of trust and help everyone in the ecosystem to grow.
It's interesting because what you described there was kind of the utopia of partnerships, right? Where there's clients that they have and they're recommending you and you're growing and it's all working out great. But so many times we've created partnerships where their salespeople just aren't going to focus on us. They're going to think about what helps build their business and how they get their compensation and the best laid partnerships. Because what you're talking about isn't like reselling organizations, right? You're talking about true partnerships of other businesses, for-profit businesses out there that are looking to grow their business, and if we can come together and help each other, that would be great. We've all gone down that path so many times where it didn't pan out. It just didn't work. Like, how do you identify what those failure points are? How do you get around them?
It's a tricky question. Most partnerships fail before they even start because companies often stop at creating a simple bundle. Buy a product A, get a discount on product B, and that's all. From my own experience, when we first started exploring partnerships as a channel, we approach it in a very basic way. We introduced our clients to a partner, helped them to start, but often got nothing in return. And not surprisingly, it didn't work because the value creation was one-sided. The core problem is that these companies aren't really integrated. Like sales team have no incentive to promote the partners' products, have no KPI about this, and the products themselves aren't connected. They have no operational alignment. For example, customers can't access both services seamlessly through one platform. Let's be honest, a one-time discount is really motivating in B2B. B2B clients are looking for long-term value and trust, not a smart savings upfront. So, if you want a partnership to succeed, it has to create value for all three parties, like your company, your partner, and the end customer. And it has to be built in a long-term perspective. It's about deep integration, I would say. like shared goals and making partnership part of how both businesses operates and part of the strategy, let's say, not just a promo activity.
Yeah, so you've mentioned a couple of times here the idea of deep integration, right? And even you got into shared KPIs and things like that. Like from at a business level, how do you make this work? What are the kind of things that you need to do to create the success? Integration, onboarding, KPIs you've talked about, but I'd love just to kind of hear a little bit more about how you make that work because I know there's a lot that goes in behind the scenes.
Yes, exactly. It's a long path to go. A few years ago, we partnered with a large ecosystem of companies, one of the largest in my country. At first, we didn't put much effort into integration. Cost performance marketing was still working, and the partnership seemed very resource intensive, let's say like this. But after the exit of Meta, Google, and LinkedIn from the Russian market, we realized that strong partnership were one of the few ways to grow effectively. We started by analyzing which projects in ecosystem could benefit from closer integration. One clear opportunity was a subscription-based service developed by a bank in our ecosystem, yeah, for its smaller business clients. Very similar in structure to our subscription-based music service for business locations. We structured a single joint subscription that combined both bank services and our music service. The most valuable benefits were only accessible through this joint subscription. If clients wanted just our service alone or bank service alone, the cost would be higher. This created a strong incentive for small businesses to adopt the unified solution. To make partnership truly deep, we focused on several operation steps. And for me, as a leader of this project, it was quite challenging, I would say. First of all, the product level integration, of course. Clients could access our music services seamlessly using their bank ID, registration in one click, and all necessary data automatically synced. So very convenient, and it brings real value for the user. Also, onboarding and training. I personally educated sales team in 11 regions. Russia is quite big region, a big country. And we were trained to understand and sell the unified subscription, ensuring a consistent client experience. So it was about 2,000 managers that I teach to do this. Also, I think that important is unified client experience. Our service were emptied in multiple touch points, like in branch, in bank, and online, and via marketing surfaces inside the profile of clients in bank. Yeah, it's all creating a smooth journey for clients, like 3060 marketing. And also, I think important to mention metric and analytics, of course, because convenient instruments gone and tools gone. So we built a tracking system to measure partnership performance, taking into account, of course, strict data rules in the banking business in my country. So this approach ensured that small business clients receive really meaningful value. The partner retains their customer longer. And we all got a lot of positive effect, I would say.
I mean, when you're talking integration, you're now talking deep integration, right? Like I'm a two-time SaaS founder myself. And if somebody had come to me and said, I want to bundle our services under a subscription with you, first thing I would say is, hang on a second, that's a big deal. That's not a small ask. And so I have to ask you, it seems like the hardest part of all of this would be selling it internally and in both your company and the other company, because that's, like I said, it's just a big ask. So how did you do that? How did you sell this program internally because before all that integration can happen, you got to have the leaders of both sides, both companies, 100% on board.
Yeah, it took a lot of efforts and the communications, of course. We had to convince, not just our own team at Звук business, but also our partners. That's this collaboration like makes sense at all. Within our company, department leaders have their own priorities, like backlogs and KPIs, and our partner, the bank, was much bigger than us, which had some extra pressure, I would say. So, to get everyone aligned, we had to do a mix of things, like persuading teams where we could, pushing decisions from top when it's necessary, and in some cases, like adjust incentives so people were motivated to focus on this partnership. Also, it was the case like skepticism was high because of previous failed attempts at partnership. It was not our first experience on the market to partner with. So it took weeks to show like real proof points and make clear why this project was worth prioritizing. In a way, selling internally mirrored selling externally. It requires trust, clarity, and demonstrating tangible value for all parties involved.
So you mentioned the word trust in there, and in B2B, it's, you know, with our external clients, it's all about relationships. It's all about building trust. And we work really hard and really long to build that trust. So were the foundations of trust already in place between you and the bank, or is that something that you had to develop at the beginning? Because without that, right, you got two separate companies, two separate P&Ls coming together, right? And working together under one subscription. That takes a tremendous amount of trust. And so I just want to, like, where did you start in the trust? And specifically, how did you build that trust?
Basically, we started with a small test in one region. I came up with this idea to a manager who was accounted for the project of subscription within the bank. And we talked, we had coffee a few times. And then I convinced her to try in the smaller region and to see how our service helped to retain customers in bank. And how it's refine and make the subscription better. And basically, we started to test with like low efforts and see that the conversion to buying subscription of the bank uh, get higher with our services for clients in some particular industries like retail, Horeca, and fashion, for instance. And then we make all the amount of different presentations, put numbers up there, and then present it to my CEO and to the CEO of particular stream in the bank. And finally, we got okay from them to try it to scale for the entire country. And that's where big project started. It was like 9 months ago or something like this.
Makes perfect sense. Like, you had a very successful case study, right? And you had good numbers and an ROI. So there's probably not a, you know, a C-suite executive leader that's going to look at that and go, oh, we can increase retention, we can increase revenue, and this isn't a good thing. But you have to get the teams involved too. In any company, it's all about high performance teams, right? So now you've got executive leadership. They bought in. You started out with a test case scenario, you proved the numbers, you brought it to executive leadership. And I know you talked about training, right? And you trained over 2,000 managers in the bank. That is no small feat. So tell me a little bit about, because the best laid plans, if it's not executed well, will die. It will make any difference. So that the execution within the bank, within your company, has to be flawless. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yes, basically for me, it started with creating a right team. When we got OK with this project, I analyzed what I need to make this project successful. And we hire new team members to my team who focused particularly on this project. So also we started to communication with IT department of the bank and the study departments within the bank. Yeah. And then we start to execute our project. It wasn't easy because really a lot of people have skepticism about this, and a lot of people just don't want to involve because they need to spend time for the main projects, of course. And even when we made the first wave of lessons for managers, our sales, they weren't skyrocket, frankly speaking. The first months, almost nothing changed. So we came to deeper level, like to teach not only leaders of these 11 regions, but to managers. We came to their morning meetings and talk about our product, but not only about product, but why our products help them to achieve their KPIs and help our customer to create the better atmosphere and the better connection with our ecosystem. Basically, we go through all of the levels of people, employees who touch with clients, have touch with clients, and finally we got good results in our project. So it's still in work till 10 December, but already now we like complete more than 19% of needed KPI to close it successfully.
Wow. Well, I'm sorry you had to go through that. You launched the project, nothing happened for 2 months. You got to be thinking, holy cow, this isn't working, right? So I'm sorry you had to go through that, but you proved something really important. And that is that we do rely on our teams, right? This can't be something that gets shouted down from leadership and here's what we're doing, so go make it happen, right? We got to buy in the stakeholders at every level to change the actions they take. So when they think about their jobs and they think about what they need to be doing and prioritizing and the what's in it for me and why this makes sense, like that's got to be really explained. And you proved it, right? When you didn't do that level of training at all levels of down the line, it didn't work, right? So that's got to be one of the big takeaways, of like doing this kind of a program is it's got to be really well explained and trained all the way through. If there were a couple of other tidbits, if you're going to go down this strategy, here's lessons learned. I would have focused more on this at the beginning. I would have done this a little bit differently. Like, what are some kernels of nuggets of wisdom that you could share with us?
If I would start this project again, um, I would try to test faster and update my strategy faster. Because when manager didn't sell us at start, we think that maybe it's okay. Maybe we need just more time. Maybe they need to talk with clients more. But finally, no, they just didn't remember about us at all. But in the end of the day, because they focused on their own product, like about 400 products from bank and ecosystem partners on their shelf, it's a lot. And when you are one of this company, you need to highlight yourself and create real value for them and for their motivation, I would say. So if you want to start the same projects in another country, for instance, focus on people. The most important thing that I learned from this project.
And one of the things that I just took away from what you said there was that you can't ever, like you talked about how you have to sell it in. You have to sell it in at every level, but you're really never stopping selling it in, are you? And you're always having to reinforce the message, reinforce the training, reinforce the success of the program, keep buying people in. And we learn that as B2B companies that we can never stop, even when we, in our own sales pipeline and when we close a deal, the sales process doesn't stop, right? I mean, it continues on and we have customer success. And so is that a good takeaway that you've never stopped selling this program and you never intend to stop selling this program?
Yes, I think it's a good takeaway because in reality, the trust and the relationships with your partners and with your clients is the most important in the B2B field. And finally, when you let like almost every another channel to communicate with the user, scalable channel, you need to focus on what you have or even build by your own hands the new channel. I think it's important.
I think that's a major takeaway. And actually, I would love to ask you because we've talked about so much here, and our poor human brains can only remember about two or three things at a time. For all the C-suite executives and marketing and sales directors, VPs, head of sales that are listening here, if there was one thing that you wanted all of us to take away from this episode, what would that one thing be?
So, if there's one thing I want to listeners to remember from our conversation today, it's this like real growth, especially in B2B. It isn't about having the biggest budget or the flashiest channel. It's about building trust and creating value and investing in people in partnership that actually work. You need like patience, persistence, and willingness to rethink the way you reach customers. If you focus on general collaboration, both with partners and with your own team, the results will come, I think, often in the ways that are much more sustainable than any company like you could deliver or invest in.
I love it. It's a whole level of partnerships for us to invest in that we don't always spend a lot of time thinking about. When we think of ourselves as a relationship-based business and investing in those relationships, it's almost always the lion's share of it is in our current prospect, like new logo development. But creating the underlying relationships that create an engine of business that comes our way. I mean, I got to take my hat off to you. You've done a lot of work there, and it was your idea, and you've seen it through, and you've lived through the ups and the downs, and you shared it with us. And this is what this podcast is all about, right? It's if we can all come together as C-suite executives and just share insights and perspectives and learnings and programs we put into place and what we learned about it, we can all share with each other, then that's like the rising tide that lifts all boats. And you were an amazing part of that rising tide today. Would it be appropriate that I gave out a link to your LinkedIn profile, but can you get onto LinkedIn? Like what's the best way for people to reach out and ask you questions?
Oh, Steve, thanks. Of course, you can put my LinkedIn link. It's totally okay, and I would appreciate to communicate with the listeners of our podcast. And thanks for having me today again.
Well, thank you. This was fantastic.